Get a glimpse of the bank's past and follow its journey into the future. By the Hands of Grenadians, a tale of commitment, fortitude, and leadership.
The timing of this event is highly propitious. Ostensibly, it is to celebrate Co-op's 90th, now 91st anniversary. But it also comes on the cusp of Grenada's 50th anniversary of political independence. I thank the Managing Director, Mr. Larry Lawrence, for affording me this privilege to come home and to share in this wonderful occasion. I have many tasks. This is one of the more pleasant tasks. So thank you for this opportunity. And I also want to thank you, Larry, for sharing with me an advanced copy of the book, this wonderful book, which is a treasure trove of Grenadian history and a seminal contribution to financial sector development in Grenada. The book is clearly a labor of love, and I commend those who had the vision, those who made contributions, those who were responsible for its execution. Kudos to Simon Lee and the team for bringing it to fruition. Is Simon here? Simon, I don't know what you were asked to do. So I'm being a little presumptuous. But I will say, you understood the assignment and you met the moment. Thank you very much. Celebrating our past. As a Grenadian, it was a delectable treat to delve into and digest the captivating story that is the making of Grenada Co-operative Bank. As I flipped the pages, studied the pictures, and read the stories, I was drawn in, fully engaged, and deeply invested. I felt, and do feel, a strong sense of pride and deep admiration for the visionaries, the founding fathers, and the multitude of stewards, or should I say, army of cooperators, over those 91 years of Grenada Co-operative Bank. By the Hands of Grenadians is well-researched, well-written, heartfelt, witty, accessible, and rich in historical nuggets and insights. The book is a very easy read because it is written in the rich tradition of storytelling. It was Rudyard Kipling who said, "If history were taught in the form of stories, it would never be forgotten." End of quote. The book tells the story of a seed being sown, of a grassroots movement, of nation building, of the adaptability, transformation, and resilience that is woven into the tapestry of Grenadian development. It is simultaneously a fitting tribute to the stalwarts and stewards and an inspiration to a new generation. I commend By the Hands of Grenadians to every Grenadian and to anyone interested in Caribbean history, banking, and economic development. And I even spied a bit of central bank history in there. The characters. Indulge me, I'm going to be about 15 minutes, so I've taken about 5, just to let you know. As I pored over the character sketches of the stalwarts, I was enthralled by the story of their struggles and strides to establish and grow the bank against the backdrop of Grenada's often stormy political climate. The trials and triumphs of these larger-than-life characters kept me invested. The sheer grit and ingenuity of W. Julian, and I see Michael is here. The escapades of plucky S.A. Francis. The selfless service of Samuel Brathwaite. The late, great Gordon Nocky Steele, who modernized the bank and brought it into the information age. And the retired great Richard W. Duncan, characterized in the book as a pragmatist as well as a strategist, page 159, who led the bank into the Premier League of banks in the ECCU. The Grenada Co-operative Bank is a veritable Grenadian icon for which we can all be justifiably proud. I pay homage to all who have labored in this vineyard, and I invite you to join me in a rousing applause for them all. Now, it is sometimes observed that as a batsman approaches his century, he slows down, gets defensive, and experiences what is referred to as the nervous 90s. Not so for the Grenada Co-operative Bank. Instead, we are observing the notable 90s. For in your 91st year, you scored a maximum with the acquisition of First Caribbean operations in Grenada. With that stroke, Grenada Co-operative Bank moved to an asset base of $2.4 billion and is now not only the largest bank in Grenada, but the third largest bank in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Not bad at all for the penny bank. The historical and symbolic significance of this acquisition in the context of Grenadian and Caribbean history should not escape us. And Richard alluded to it earlier, and so did Floyd. For the antecedents of FCIB were Barclays Bank and Colonial Bank. In a manner of speaking, the noose of colonialism has been severed, replaced now with a necklace of cooperation and self-reliance. Now, as the representative of the regulator, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, I warmly congratulate CoBank on this tremendous achievement. But I must always also remind you of Luke 12:48, which says, and I quote, "To whom much is given, much is required. And to whom much more is given or entrusted, much more will be demanded." You have, and I'm looking straight at the board and the managing director and team, full in the face, as my grandfather would say, eye to eye. I don't know if I need to take off my glasses to make the connection. Eyeball to eyeball. You have a tremendous responsibility in your hands. Depositors. Half of all depositors in Grenada now reside in the Grenada Co-operative Bank. Your 4,000 odd shareholders. The financial stability of Grenada as its largest bank. And the financial stability of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union as its third largest bank and a systemically important bank. I hope I'm crystal clear. Now, speaking of financial stability, I applaud Grenada for having the lowest non-performing ratio in the currency union. The current rate of about 3.2% is below our prudential limit of 5%. Grenadians, please keep it that way. Inspiring our future. As important as the trailblazers were of these prominent individuals in Grenadian society, chronicled in the book, the story of Grenada Co-op Bank is not merely about these large personalities, and I mentioned some of the names earlier. Instead, it is about what they achieved together through their collective efforts. Grenada Co-op's contribution to the development of Grenada is their true legacy. So to Larry L., current managing director, and this generation, I pose the question, what will your legacy be? the counsel of Benjamin Franklin offered in 1738 is useful here. And he says, either write something worth reading or do something worth writing. Write something worth reading or do something worth writing. The book today chronicles something that it did that was worth writing about. Now it's your turn. A quote from W. Julian in the book is very instructive. When he says, once you believe in your people, unimaginable things are possible. End of quote. And so I asked, what unimaginable, positive, unimaginable things will Grenada Co-op now pursue? How about joining in the big push? A call, a challenge I've put to the region since the beginning of the year in this our 40th anniversary, Central Bank's 40th anniversary. And it is simply framed in this way. What will it take to double the size of our economy over the next 10 years? For Grenada, the size of this economy is currently about $3.5 billion. So the question is, what will it take to get to $7 billion over the next 10? And what is going to be the role of Grenada Co-operative Bank in that enterprise, that doubling enterprise? Unless you get a little daunted by the prospect or by the challenge, take heart and inspiration from the story we celebrate today. Because Co-op Bank was birthed in the period of the Great Depression. The story then is that even in adversity, there is opportunity. But we have to want it and we have to seize it. And it requires the growth mindset which reframes problems as opportunities. Now, a couple of things before I sit as you contemplate the future. First, and Richard spoke to it, it is imperative that you listen to your customers. Indeed, that is the most important lesson shared by the former managing director. Of all the lessons he could have shared, that is the one that stood out most. It was Jeff Bezos of Amazon fame, one of the richest men in the world, formerly the richest man in the world, who once said, and I quote, "We do not focus on our competition. We focus on the business of the customer." End of quote. And if you look at Jeff Bezos' work, his first principle for success in business is customer obsession. Co-op, listen to the customers. And I make this appeal as governor of the central bank at a time when I hear a lot of complaints from banks across the currency union, from customers of banks across the currency union, about how the bank is treating them or mistreating them. I'm not here to bring up a specific complaint this afternoon, but I'm merely here to challenge you to strive to be best in class when it comes to customer service. Because that is one of the surest ways to have a sustainable winning strategy in this business, difficult business called banking. And we have to demonstrate that as indigenous banks take over from these Canadian operations, that we not just talk about the pride we feel to own the commanding heights of the economy, but the responsibility we carry to demonstrate that we're capable. And not, we can just meet, but we can exceed expectations. And customer service is one of the surest measures or metric for how these banks will be judged. For those of you who don't know, there's been a movement in the currency union. In the last 3-4 years, we've seen the indigenous banks now take the lion's share. So that today, almost 70% of all assets in our currency union are controlled by our indigenous banks. And of course, Co-op is right there at the forefront. So That is the benchmark that you have to consider as we go forward. Second, financial inclusion. At a time when vast segments of the population were being excluded from the financial system, Grenada Co-op stepped in to fill a need, welcoming everyone, you heard it from the story, Mr. Thornhill, including women and children, youth. With as little as a penny, and among that was deemed too small for other institutions at the time, individuals were permitted to open a bank account. I noted the nostalgia and pride with which Ricardo Keynes Douglas recounted having his first bank account at the tender age of 7, and that's on page 47. As a region, we've made considerable strides in financial inclusion. But shockingly, 91 years on, in the case of Co-op, and even longer for one or two others outside of the region, we are still struggling when it comes to financial inclusion. And recent developments have, in fact, taken us a step back in some cases. What do I mean by that? In ECCB's most recently concluded Financial Inclusion and Financial Literacy Survey, we found that only 1 in 2 adults in Grenada, 53.2%, have a bank account. Just completed that survey. 1 in 2. The corresponding figure in the ECCU is 3 in 5, 64.9%. We're going to release the full results in September, and you will see then banks and credit unions. So I will say, when you put banks and credit unions together, it might be about 80%, 4 in 5 with an account, bank or credit union. But still a significant number without a bank account in either bank or credit union. I therefore specially invite Co-op Bank to work with the ECCB and other banks across our region to address the vexing issue of opening a bank account. We must preserve financial integrity, which means the safeguards around money laundering and financing of terrorism. But we cannot exclude ordinary folk, or young people, a business startup, from opening a bank account. I have asked the ECCU Bankers Association for proposals in this regard. We received them last month, and we are now actively reviewing them. I have already signaled our intention to go to our governments, and if we have to make adjustment in legislation, we are prepared to recommend those, but we have to make it easier for people to open a bank account. It cannot be that you could go to the US and open a bank account in minutes, but it could take months or not at all in the Eastern Caribbean. That's a nonsense that I cannot and will not stomach, and we have to do something about. So Co-op did a lot to get people into the banks, but international imperatives of which we know, and I won't get into this afternoon, are constraining or pushing people back out, and now, in some cases, forcing people to put money on their mattresses again. That is ridiculous, and we must not allow that to continue. There are other things, but since I went beyond my time, I'll leave it for my statement, and perhaps you'll read it if you feel led so to do. Wealth creation, corporate social responsibility, corporate governance. On wealth creation, I will say this. Co-op has done much to help the Grenadian people with respect to wealth creation, including owning their own homes, building their businesses, educating children,